Hello.
Hey.
I wanted to make sure that if you could make me a co-host, so during the panel, I could show a few slides.
I just did.
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody, depending upon where you are. I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer and Planetarium Programs Director at Franklin Institute Science Museum in Philadelphia. And welcome. Welcome to the first session this morning, the AAS Solar Eclipse Planning Workshop. This is block 3 that you're joining now, informal education and public outreach. And in this first session here, we have Vivian White up first with a presentation about preparing community partners for success. And following Vivian's presentation, Greg Schultz will have a panel discussion about community partners, lessons learned from 2017. And after this session, there's a break at 12:45. And then following this, we have breakout sessions starting at 12:55. First is breakout 3.1, working with libraries as community information centers. And then following that, not following, but concurrent at the same time, is breakout 3.2, engaging with local, state, and national parks. And then when that session is done, 2:15, that's the next break. So we're going to start first with this first block, with this first section of block 3. And Vivian is going to give her presentation for us. Vivian is the Director of Free Choice Learning at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. She manages NASA's Night Sky Network and develops workshops for all audiences, from Girl Scouts all the way out to Tibetan monks, as well as lots and lots and lots of other great stuff. So Vivian, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Derrick. Hi, everyone. Thank you for showing up on a Saturday morning in April. I am so glad to be here. I can't believe it's only 2 years until the next eclipse. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of 2017. I know just from this list of participants that there are a lot of you who were not just there at the 2017 eclipse, but who participated and made it happen. So hi, Stuart. But I also know that there are some of you who did not participate or maybe saw a total eclipse for the first time in 2017 and are now tasked with putting something together. So I just want to assure you that we have you covered, not to worry. It's going to be awesome, except for the clouds. Let's see. All right. So just to let you know, we did it. We think about 215 million people from the youngest to all the way through saw the 2017 eclipse in some way. Only about 12 million people we think saw the total, which is no small potatoes. It was challenging in a lot of ways, as these things can be. It was a Monday. It was just as school was starting, so it was really hard to get the schools involved. A lot of them, it might have been their first day of instruction. And it was kind of the first time it had happened in the memory of most everybody who was in the US. So people didn't know what to expect. We will have completely different challenges for 2024 for the total eclipse there. Of course, it's going to be springtime. We'll have different weather challenges. We got so lucky in 2017 in August that almost the entire path of totality was clear. It was kind of phenomenal. But spring is different. It could also be spring break for some schools, which may be great, may not be great. And perhaps the people around us will have eclipse saturation. Maybe they'll have seen a partial eclipse or seen even an annular eclipse and may not realize how exciting this total eclipse is. But either way, we're going to have a lot more people on the path of totality in 2024. So we expect maybe 4 or 5 times the number to see it in this next total eclipse. The next one here, making it probably the most viewed eclipse of all time. So we have a lot to look forward to. The success in 2017 was largely due to these partnerships that we had between the government and scientists and the private sector and just countless volunteers who were so excited about the eclipse that they made this happen. You're going to hear from quite a few of those coming up. I want to give a huge shout out to NASA and Google and the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation and all the volunteers, obviously, who got 2 million, more than 2 million eclipse classes to over 700,000 libraries, for example. This was no small feat, and libraries and parks became kind of centers of eclipse knowledge. A lot of this happened because of the partnerships that they had with the amateur astronomers and professional astronomers in their area. And we know for sure that this is a common thing, and amateur astronomers can be a source of inspiration and education all over the world, but especially leading up to eclipses. The problem is many of them will not be in their communities for the eclipse proper. So that means that we have to do a lot of training in advance. None of this would have happened without this upfront training of all the dedicated volunteers. And while we all might be immersed in eclipses for the minutia of it for these next 2 years, a lot of people are going to be seeing this for the very first time. So the training of the educators ranges from what is a solar eclipse all the way through to, this was Pat from Rice University doing an eclipse training on the right here about many things, including how to photograph an eclipse. So there's many different levels of training that will be needed. And we've learned a lot from 2017, and we'll be doing that again for these next eclipses. I know of many efforts that are happening around that. I'll just mention 2 here. The AAS, along with the Society of Physics students, are going to be training local cohorts on the path of totality at upcoming AAS meetings and these eclipse meetings when we have them in person, as well as I'll be helping to lead a NASA-funded project of Eclipse Ambassadors, and we're going to be training 1,000 amateur astronomer / undergraduate partnerships across the country in 500 different communities. And that's going to be primarily to engage underserved audiences in places off the path of totality. A lot of our efforts go towards people who will be on the path of totality, but more than 90% of the people in the US will not be on the paths. So we want to make sure to reach out to everyone and make it a great experience, even if you're seeing a partial eclipse, which I know that scale yesterday that she came up with was fantastic, but I still am so excited. And people who walk by on the street of a partial eclipse, if you show them a partial eclipse through a telescope, they are still excited. Okay, it's not a total eclipse, but it is not nothing. Our creative viewing for the 2017 eclipse was on point. I was so impressed with all of the different ways that people came up with viewing. And we're going to need that again, because like I said, we got lucky in 2017 that it was very clear out. But even if it's not clear, people like the Exploratorium have this app that will show totality as it's happening across the country. They're doing an amazing job. Rick codified kind of this sun funnel that allows a lot of people to see an eclipse at the same time. So you don't have to have a solar telescope with your eyeball to the eyepiece. I use this all the time. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't put it on your telescope already. Of course, there are trees and colanders and our fingers that we can use that are always great engagement opportunities. And a huge shout out to the Franklin Institute that on the bottom right here, that got an entire tent and covered it in Mylar. And you could just look up and see the eclipse. I just thought that was one of the coolest things. And I plan to do that for this next one coming up because I think it's kind of fantastic. Yeah, a lot of shout outs for the sun funnel in the chat. Agreed, totally. Okay. One thing I don't want you to forget is that there's a lot of citizen science happening as well. So 2017 saw tons of citizen science efforts, from Citizen Kate to the Eclipse mega movie, the Globe Eclipse app, iNaturalists. A lot of those you can find in the poster session, and many are being repeated or updated even for 2024. And there is real science to be done. You can go anywhere from, verifying, measuring the curvature of space, all the way to noticing the sounds of the animals around you. There are a million options. And did I mention balloons? There's a whole ballooning project that's going to watch the eclipse from space. So that's all over the country. And you're going to be able to find all of this information and a whole lot more on the AAS website. We are collecting all of this. We are in the process of doing so. Huge shout out to Rick, who is putting this together, and we're helping him out. There is an Informal Education Eclipse Task Force who is helping to aggregate some of these. So if you don't see something on there that you think should be on there, please let us know. Or if there's something that you're looking for that you can't find, hopefully we can point you towards that. So with all the numbers and everything that we're doing, I just want to remind you all that this is not just about the numbers. This is about making memories with the people who are important to us. So there are only 7 years between these two total solar eclipses that are crossing the US. We know that these first 5 have been a doozy. I hope the next 2 are a lot more fun. And some people made time capsules for the 2017 eclipse. I thought that was really cool. The next total solar eclipse that's going to cross the US is going to be August 12th, 2045, more than 20 years later. So it's going to be a long time. I often ask kids, in the 2017 eclipse, where they imagine they would be for the 2024 eclipse. And I want to give a shout out to those people who are really influential for the 2017 eclipse, who are not going to be able to see this one. In particular, Mike Reynolds and Mike Bennett, a couple of Mikes who were really did a lot of mentoring of me and many people for eclipses, and also to my papa, my grandfather, who got to see his first eclipse in 2017 at the young age of 94. I hope that with any luck, I might even get to see the 2045 eclipse with my grandkids. So I want to encourage you all to make lots of memories and enjoy this while you're busy planning. I'm going to turn this over to Greg Schultz, who will now moderate our panel of experts that will give you all of the details about what I was just talking about, and maybe give you some inspiration for how to.
Before we move on, Vivian, real quick, there is a question probably for Derrick asking for a link to the Mylar tent. So Derrick, if you have a description of that anywhere, or if not, so it's a good time to patent your idea from 2017. It might be a lucrative one, but I think there's a request for that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It is a DIY, and what I'll do is we'll write it up and get that posted so everybody can make one yourselves. Pretty straightforward, but I'll get that done.
Thanks, Derrick. Great.
Awesome. All right, well, we now have a very cool panel coming up here. We've got 4 community partners who are going to be speaking. I'll just introduce them quickly, and then we'll go give them a chance to make some opening remarks. Basically, the panel instructions are to talk about what are they bringing from 2017 to now, and what might they do differently this time around for 2024 in particular, and maybe for the 2023 annual eclipse as well. So the 4 panelists we have are Carmen Pantoja from the University of Puerto Rico in Rio Piedras. I hope I said that correctly. Second will be Anne Holland from the Space Science Institute. Third will be Amy Sayle from Morehead Planetarium and Science Center. And fourth is Andy Fraknoi from University of San Francisco and San Francisco State. There's a hand raised. Is there something quick you wanted to ask, Wayne? I know it was up earlier.
He's muted. Wayne, you're muted.
We don't have the participants can't unmute right now until the Q&A. So Wayne, why don't you put your question in the chat, and then we can either pass it to our panelists or come back to it in the Q&A.
Thanks, Claire. All right, I see Carmen. So Carmen, if you want to make your opening remarks about your experience from 2017 and what you might do differently for the next eclipses.
Sure, thank you. Well, there's no need of convincing. Observing the total eclipse is wonderful experience, and if you have the chance to be at that location, that definitely is the way to go. But in 2017 in Puerto Rico, the eclipse was a partial eclipse, and those can be exciting events also, as Vivian mentioned. For us, it was a coverage about 80%. And there was a lot of preliminary preparation. Months before the eclipse, we started out by preparing a group of students that would help us the day of the event. And we gave them background regarding science communication, working with the public, getting familiar with the equipment they would be using and the materials. And also during those months, we had them test their skills with small outreach events so they could work with the public also. Another aspect of preparation goes on at the schools and with the children. So what we did to help them was identify lessons and activities that were in Spanish. For our community, that's very important to have access to information in Spanish because the lessons that they teach at school are in Spanish. And also that summer before the eclipse, many of the summer camps incorporated activities in astronomy, in particular about the eclipse. One of the important things to prepare also is with the public. And so we had activities like with CNN in Espanol, where we had short interviews about the eclipse for the public. We published in Spanish articles giving information about the eclipse and sharing that in social media and different forms. And the days before the eclipse that already the public is very interested, we had our students go to local TV news in the news reports and tell the people and promote the events that were going on throughout the island and how people could join in and participate of those events or observe safely the eclipse from home by different means. And also, like Vivian mentioned, it's very important the help of the amateurs. So months before the eclipse, the amateurs were active doing presentations at different locations, giving the information to the people. On the day of the eclipse, the amateurs, but their strategy was to divide their memberships in small groups. And throughout Puerto Rico, there were several locations where people could go and join events with telescopes and eclipse glasses. And in this one, I'm showing an emblematic picture. This here is Castillo San Felipe del Morro, which is a national park. And this green area is a space that is very important for Puerto Ricans because they use this space for family activities, cultural events, and periodically we have astronomy events going on here. So already people, if they're not informed of events, they go there expecting to have something for this type of event, and it was very successful. Our two major groups of amateurs are Sociedad de Astronomía del Caribe. These are some of their members. But the other large group of amateurs in Puerto Rico is Sociedad de Astronomía de Puerto Rico. And they divided up in different cities and different places to help people observe the partial eclipse. For us, we organized an event at the university. This is in front of our Faculty of Natural Sciences, and this picture is when people are arriving. So we gathered them in a hall where we gave them the background information and discussed the safety measure and distributed materials. But this space was also our backup. So we had the live transmission from NASA going on there. We had nice weather, So our event, we had people of all ages. And I think that's the most significant, that you have all ages interacting and enjoying this event. We received the support of the Society of Physics students. They had the 2017 Solar Eclipse grant program, and they sent us 100 eclipse glasses we used that day. And from NASA Kennedy Space Center, they sent us a copy of the book, Getting a Feel for Eclipses, which was in Braille and tactile images. And we used that preliminary and also the day of the event. We had the help from professors of physics and students of physics and physical sciences interacting with all the people. So when you're doing this, you can see how happy and satisfied people are because they approach you and they tell you directly. But it was a great satisfaction when the next day, the report in the local news coverage was so favorable that Puerto Rico stopped for this partial eclipse, and people were really interested in learning, and it was such a change of pace in society. So we're looking forward. It will be a partial eclipse, not as good as the 2017, but we want to do an activity also for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. We'll go on to the next panelist, and that's Anne Holland of the Space Science Institute.
Great, thank you.
Ready? There you are.
Can you hear me? Perfect. I wasn't going to share slides because I have them for the next session, but I think I will just put up one of my slides so that you all don't have to remember the numbers I'm about to say. Do you all see the PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cool. I won't even bother making it presenter mode because I just want to talk really quick so you guys have some time for questions. So libraries got involved in the 2017 eclipse through the NASA at My Library program and through a very generous grant from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. Through those grants, more than 2.1 million glasses were distributed. More than 7,000 individual library locations participated, bookmobiles, tribal libraries, library consortia, and 1.75 million people approximately were impacted in the public library setting. So this was very much in 2017 an uphill battle to get libraries involved, right? Many libraries did not do STEM programming back in 2017, and hundreds of our participating libraries had never done a public program of any sort before. So there's a lot of building momentum, building understanding, basic facilitation techniques, and we're in such a good place for 2023 and 24 because a lot of that groundwork has already been laid. So the great news for all of you is you do not need to rely on folks like me to get to the libraries. What we'll be doing is providing the librarians with resources and programs and great educational resources that they can share with their patrons, but you don't need an Annie like you did last time to get in contact with your library. They all know the eclipse is coming. They all know it's super exciting, and they are all waiting to hear from people who want to work with them. We started getting requests for glasses the month after the last eclipse happened. So libraries are prepped and ready to go. We'll help them with the resources, and I hope you guys can help them with the manpower that we don't have as much of. And I think that's all I want to share right now. Much more in our next session, and I want to leave some time for the last speakers.
Sorry. Thank you, Anne. The next panelist is Amy Sayle from Morehead. Are you?
Hey, thanks. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm at Morehead Planetarium and Science Center, which is part of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, pictured here. So we have decades of experience with hosting skywatching events for the public in our immediate area, the Research Triangle area in North Carolina. And we got in the statewide business when we started producing the North Carolina Science Festival, which is happening right now. It's throughout the entire month of April every year. So we work with partners across the state to put on hundreds of science events. that's now in its 12th year, and now in its 10th year is, as part of the festival, is a statewide star party. It's actually happening this weekend. And we think it's the biggest statewide star party for the public in the universe. So we work with hosts like libraries, schools, colleges, historic sites, parks, nature centers, science centers to put on skywatching events with other hands-on activities on the same weekend in April. And the elements of that are that we require event hosts to apply and agree to various commitments. We have a different theme every year, and we make a host kit that we send to the host with hands-on activities on that theme. We provide training, and we also do some matchmaking with astronomers to help support those events. Shout out to Tyler Norgren for designing us a stunning Star Party poster. He also designed our Eclipse Party poster. So we built on that model of the statewide Star Party when the 2017 solar eclipse came around. We also worked with South Carolina. I'm just going to talk about the North Carolina effort, though. We worked with 35 sites across the state to put on eclipse party events. You see them clustered in the southwestern corner of North Carolina. That's not because that's where the population is, it's because that's where the path of totality was. So most of our sites, though, were not in totality. And these were some of the partners that we worked with. So I just wanted to real quick share a few tips that we've learned from the Carolina Solar Eclipse Party and from 10 years of the statewide Star Party about how to put on successful skywatching events with multiple organizations across your state. And number one is find good event hosts. So consider the networks you already have. We already had a network of partners through the Science Festival. We always consider who knows astronomy, and then who knows how to put on a program, has a venue, and can reach an audience. And sometimes we do matchmaking between those groups. So if you have a new host, for example, that has the expertise but doesn't have an audience, you can put those folks together and so on. And the most successful events, as we've been hearing throughout this workshop, have partners. So on the left, you can see the long list of community partners that Cape Fear Museum in Wilmington works with for their event at Carolina Beach State Park. And there's our US Congressman demonstrating a new frontier in constituent service. We've put him to work handing out eclipse glasses at Morehead Planetarium. And this has already come up, but if I'm thinking specifically of 2024 here, the sites in totality will probably have no trouble finding astronomers willing to bring their expertise and their nice equipment. Sites that are impartial only may have trouble even keeping just their own astronomy staff. I will fully admit that I bailed and went to Oregon on August 21st, 2017. So we think it's important to offer training to the event hosts. For the eclipse, we focused on eye safety, how to host a successful event, how to lead the activities. We did it in 3 different regions of our state, and we required that each site that wanted to be part of the eclipse party take at least 2 people to participate in the training. And we think it's important to offer a variety of activities. Different host sites reach different audiences, and we want them to be able to think about what's relevant and inclusive for their local communities. It's also good to have some indoor activities as well, should it be cloudy that day. And this is just a little preview of what we put in the 2017 clip. This isn't kit, it isn't all of it. It's just a few of the activities. We went all out. We had some good funding that year. And then one thing I want to really reiterate that not everybody's going to make it to totality. We spent 2 years telling people to go to the path of totality in southwestern North Carolina or to South Carolina, which was close for many people in North Carolina. We still had 5,000 people show up just at the Morehead Planetarium event, and they were super excited. And so the final tip plays off of that one. You probably cannot buy too many eclipse glasses. And if you want to learn more, you can check out the North Carolina Science Festival website, and I'll drop my email into chat. It's starparty@unc.edu. Thanks, and I'll stop sharing.
Great, thank you, Amy. And we have one more panelist, and we'll do a Q&A. If you want to queue up any of your questions in the chat window, please go ahead and take that opportunity as we go forward. So next final panelist is Andy Fraknoi. Andy, do you have slides?
I do, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I'm actually part of the tag team with Anne about the libraries project. My role is to tell you a little bit about how we use partnerships. But I just want to say before I show my slides that Anne was being extremely modest about her contributions and the Space Science Institute's contributions. You can't imagine the logistics involved in our getting 2.1 million glasses to more than 7,000 public libraries. And they handled everything with finesse and aplomb. And I just want to applaud them. And we hope to do that same thing again, but with more glasses and more libraries this year. Our funder, I think, has allowed me to say that we can be cautiously optimistic that this will happen. So let me show a few slides, particularly about partnerships. Let me go to share screen, and here we go from beginning. So I just want to remind everyone that this is a North American eclipse that we are looking forward to. And there will be 500 million people in North America who can see the partial eclipse. So we will need a lot of eclipse glasses, and we're going to need a lot of funders. Even with all the funders mentioned, we're going to need a lot more of them. And the manufacturers are going to be overwhelmed by the time the eclipse is anywhere near. So early planning is essential. But we found that with all the people watching the 2017 eclipse, the most democratic and the most available institution to serve as a central outreach focus in each community was the public library. Many communities, rural, tribal, urban communities, can use their local library, know and trust their local library. And so it was we think, if we may say this, an inspired idea to put the libraries as the center of community outreach. And the libraries rose to the occasion, even though many of them were not science-oriented institutions. They were very much part of how to figure out eclipse education in their communities. In the 2017 eclipse, as you heard, thanks to the Moore Foundation and others like Google and NASA, we distributed 2 million glasses, which we think 6 million people used. We involved more than 7,000 libraries. Out of those, more than 2,000 librarians took a webinar. Now, this was on Zoom often, long before Zoom became famous. And not only that, they then went ahead and had 35,000 programs, as Anne mentioned. That's really quite something. This was not just having viewing, but explaining the eclipse in advance. And the librarians immediately told us that they don't know anything about astronomy, and what were they going to do? They were very willing to help, but they needed an astronomer. And so where were we going to get astronomers for all these libraries? And so it was really important to encourage local experts to become partners with the libraries. And that's what we're doing in this partnership panel, is to talk about all the different institutions that we were able to engage last time and that we hope to engage even more fully this time. Certainly NASA was an incredibly important part of this, and we're looking forward to working with NASA this time. The NASA centers, the NASA missions, especially solar ones. I know Sherry Ann Morrow is now working with a solar project and is interested in doing more on eclipses. The whole NASA HEAT project that you'll hear more about this afternoon. And NASA has a variety of ambassador programs, including the perhaps best known solar system ambassadors, but there are many other projects that have ambassadors, all of whom can be trained, or many of them already know about eclipses and can be repurposed in 2023 and 24 to help with eclipse education. Certainly at local colleges and universities, astronomers stepped up and worked with their local libraries, and we hope to do that again. You probably are thinking of four-year colleges and universities, research universities. Members of those are often members of the two scientific societies in astronomy, the American Astronomical Society and the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And you already heard from Vivian that both of these organizations already have funded programs to do partnership, and many of them plan to then use the partners they train in libraries, in communities, particularly in underserved communities. But don't forget about the community colleges. Many communities have one or more community colleges and community college centers. Often there are people teaching astronomy there, many of them part-time or what we call adjunct instructors. You can find your local community college using the American Association of Community Colleges Community College Finder. If you don't know where one is in your community, that's AACC. These colleges are particularly devoted to public education, and so they're going to make great partners for the projects we have. I can't resist mentioning a project that Greg is also involved with, that I have the pleasure of working with, which is the American Astronomical Society Astronomy Ambassadors, where each year we train between 25 and 30 early career astronomers to become more effective at doing outreach. And we've now trained more than 275 such early career, meaning mostly young astronomers, to make sure that they consider outreach an important and legitimate part of their astronomy careers, just like many of you in this workshop do. And that group is available. They're listed at the American Astronomical Society website. Rick Feinberg, who's our genial host, has been an enormous helper with getting all the information and all the help from the AAS. And their website continues to be an up-to-date listing of these ambassadors. You'll hear more about this, but Dennis Schatz, whom you heard from yesterday, was the first astronomer to become president of the National Science Teaching Association. That's their new name. They used to be called the National Science Teachers Association. And they were very much involved. Science teachers around the country helped by becoming partners for their libraries. I'll shamelessly mention that he and I wrote 2 books, one for kids and one for teachers, to help them with the eclipse, and those will be available for the next eclipse as well. But then there's the Night Sky Network, which Vivian is very much a part of, which is a set of over 400 astronomy clubs that have community and school outreach as a primary purpose or primary goal of their clubs. This is a JPL, NASA, and ASP program. They have their own website. And there's again a finder that you can go to, so you can go to a Night Sky Network club in your community and be sure that that club thinks eclipse outreach will be worthwhile, because astronomy outreach is part of their primary purpose. Also, there's the Astronomical League, which is the umbrella group of amateur astronomy clubs. And there are some clubs that are league members who are not Night Sky Network members. They also have a website, astroleague.org, and that can allow you to find the amateur club in your community if you don't already know it. And amateurs were incredibly helpful with libraries. They were among the best. Sometimes they need a little help to make sure that their outreach is not as nerdy as they might do with among themselves. But when you work with an amateur astronomy club, their enthusiasm for the eclipse and for astronomy in general is infectious and really good to use with public audiences. We're going to be working with the 2 major magazines, Sky and Telescope, which has now been purchased by the American Astronomical Society, and has devoted itself more to education as a result of that, and Astronomy magazine as well. And so they will be an important part of this. There's an Association of Science and Technology Centers called ASTEC, and that allows you to find the science museums near you. Science museums had their own programs, but they often had staff members who came to libraries and helped with the library projects as well. So that's just a small listing of the kind of partnerships we did and that we hope to do for the coming eclipses. And I'll stop there.
Great, thank you, Andy. I'll take the prerogative to start with questions. It was mentioned that astronomers were often abandoned their their regions to go to the total eclipse, and I was one of those as well. What fraction of folks in the amateur astronomy community would you folks say were still available to assist their local clubs when they were still impartial? Anyone have a thought on how that worked in 2017? 0%?
I'm joking, but yeah, Vivian's doing it right. A tiny bit. And because even if they weren't involved with going to the total eclipse, they were eclipse crazy that day. And so a few of them did come to the library because they weren't going somewhere, but it's really the important thing, I think, for the libraries particularly is to get help beforehand, to help with getting the audiences trained, explaining what glasses are for, and so on. But I'll let other people answer as well.
And
I've made it that everybody can unmute their microphone. So if you want to take questions from everybody, Greg, you can do.
Okay, great. Vivian, were you about to?
Oh, I was just saying very few, but also, when it gets to that time, even if you are not on the path of totality, you're often with a family or a group of people who you want to just experience that with. So yeah, that advanced training is an important one.
Indeed. All right, Wayne, you have the chance now. You are unmuted, I see, so go ahead.
Yeah, last night I started thinking about the state outlines for the path of totality. What we could do is make up a whole packet of downloadable, printable state outlines with pre-punched holes to give us just about the right distribution of the solar crescents when you were projecting them from, say, a throw distance of 2 to 3 feet. And this would be something, of course, that everybody close to totality would be able to get the solar crescents imaged. We saw a lot of this, particularly in Tennessee and Kentucky, but in particular, think of how distinctive the state outlines of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, all are. There's some other states that aren't going to be so distinctive, but that would be something that kids could do as a classroom activity, pre-punch the holes, take them out during the partial phases, use their smartphones to take photos of very distinctive, localized eclipse memories.
Great, thank you, Wayne. Rick C had a question in the chat, and this may answer it verbally. If it doesn't, Rick, you can add to your question. But you were wanting the panelists to comment on what they will do differently, specifically differently in 2024 than in 2017. Anyone want to chime in on that?
I typed my answer in the box, but I'll say it out loud too, because I think it's really important in the context of this discussion, which is looking for partnerships. We did not have a good partnership with the state library agencies in 2017, and they are now huge supporters of the work we're doing and our projects. So we're able to work directly with them. And they actually have a mandate from their IMLS funding that they have to support every individual school and public library in their state, which means the libraries who never heard about our offerings last time until too late will get the information in a timely manner now. So if folks are interested in working with libraries at their state level, I am happy to connect you with the appropriate state librarian, because that is much, much easier than trying to contact 100 libraries individually.
And I guess I'll answer this in two ways. One thing, more seriously, I will say that the main thing I think we need to do, differently, and we're hoping to do differently, is start way earlier. No matter how early you start, you're starting too late for trying to do a national outreach project. So I think the earlier you can start, at least making contacts and causing awareness to rise, that's good. On a less serious note, I'll say that one challenge we're going to have this time is conspiracy theories. I mean, so far, Florida has not passed a law that says you can't say the word eclipse to young people, but who knows what's going to happen. And this is going to be a national cover-up, so, there'll be conspiracy theories of various kinds. And having a careful and well-reasoned science explanation and science, explaining why science is important, may need to be part of our arsenal this time.
Let me just jump
Carmen.
in really quickly and let you know we have a minute left here, folks. So
We got to wrap this up. Carmen or Amy, did you have any thoughts on what to do differently?
Yeah, preparation is a thing. It always takes time, and getting people ready and so that they understand what they can do to observe it in case they can't get to a location. So that's really important too.
I'll echo what everybody's saying about starting now. So we've already started educating people about these eclipses, using the upcoming total lunar eclipse as an excuse for doing that. And I'm making notes to myself that I need to start placing orders for eclipse glasses now. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, there was a lot of comments in the chat about that too. You have a quick question, Wayne, or comment?
Just a comment. I saw a note on Facebook about the eclipse 4 days ago, and someone very, very intently was asking, well, if it's so dangerous, why do you even allow it to happen? It was for real.
All right, we turn it over to Derrick to conclude the session.
thanks a lot, Greg. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us for this session. We now have a break from 12:45 to 12:55. And coming up next are the breakout sessions, breakout 3.1, working with libraries as community information centers with Andy Fraknoi, Dennis Schatz, and Holland. And you know that's going to be an exciting session right there. And concurrently running is breakout session 3.2, engaging with local, state, and national parks. Also exciting stuff. So enjoy your break. Thank you for joining us here today. And don't forget that the breakout sessions start at 12:55. Thanks to all the panelists and all the great questions and things like that. And we'll see you at the next session. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Derrick.
Thanks,
everyone.
Vivian.
Everybody.
And don't forget that to get to the breakout sessions, you need a different URL.
Yes.
That the URL has to now say breakout 1 or breakout 2. You can't get to the breakout sessions here on this URL.
Thanks, Andy.
Sure.
And you'll see them posted in the chat there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Claire. Fabulous.
Thanks for the reminder, Andy. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
I'm the meeting bureaucracy person from all the meetings I've had to run. Sorry.